In this tutorial, we're going to focus on the buttons and formulas. Now, for the buttons, we're going to focus on the accounts table, and we're going to try to create some new accounts in our chart of accounts. Also, you can see here we can update and delete accounts as well. So we're going to actually duplicate this table down below just so you can see how I built it. So in this case here, I look on my panel on the right, and in the Xero pack, there's some buttons for new accounts, update, and delete. So for all buttons and accounts, what we generally want to do is create a table. So here in my canvas, I'm just going to simply / and look for table, create a blank table, and give it a name. So we'll just call this accounts table. And I want to change this notes column, in this case, to column type. I want to search for button, and I'm going to select that. Then I'm greeted with the menu to set up the button. So here under actions, I'm going to actually scroll all the way down to packs, find my Xero pack, and then add the button this way. So we're going to hit new account in this case. And once we do that, we see all the required fields that we need to set up to initialize this button. So in this case here, I'm actually going to point these different fields to the columns rather than putting in some static text. So in this case here for codes, we're going to point this to column 2. Actually, I'll first have to hit equals and then look for column 2. There we go. And click off, and it saves it there. For name, we're just going to point it at the primary column, which is the first column. So equals, and we can see name is right there. So we'll click on it. And then for type, we're going to point this at column 3 for now. And we'll click off it as well. And now our button is ready to go. Another thing to note is for some of these tables, you can potentially add some more fields. So you can see here for accounts, I can add things like tax type, currency code, for example. For now, we're just going to ignore those. We'll give it a color. We'll just color green, and we also want to maybe change the name of the button to, let's say, add account. And once we click off it, we can see our account button is ready to go. So I can actually drag to make it a little bit bigger horizontally. And now we're just going to change the headers. So here, this one is called code, and this one was type. So in order to hit the button and get information to go into Xero, we just want to make sure we fill out the fields. So in this case, let's give it, let's create a new account. We're going to call this maybe sports sales. The code's going to be 230, and the type is going to be, let's say, sales. There we go. And once we've put in the information, we just simply hit add button. And when we do that, it's going to then sync this new information into Xero. And you can verify if the account has been added by going to your accounts table, resyncing it, and you can see the new information into the table. So in this case, in my accounts table, I've already synced a previous sports sales account in there. I actually called it 220 at the time. But you can see here as an example, this is what you're going to see. And if I actually remove the search here, these are all my accounts. And if I specifically in my search box up here search sports, you can see it just finds a new account that I added in. So that's an example of adding a new account. If I go back to accounts, we can also do the exact same for update and delete. Now, there are a couple of things to note here. For update and delete, these are accounts that are already in your chart of accounts. So to add those, we need to do something a little bit different, which is a lookup field. And that's what this accounts column here is. So we're going to add a lookup field here. So what we're going to look up is our accounts table that we already have up here on our left menu. So to create a lookup table, I simply add a new account, go to lookup, and then we're going to find our account table here. And maybe I'm just going to drag this and bring it to the side of my button. And what this does is now if I select this lookup field, I can actually see that it's looking up to my accounts table. And actually, I've pointed it at the wrong table. It's pointing at the same table. So what I actually want to do is go back here, and I see my accounts table here is called accounts. So I'm going to go back to my button, and switch the lookup options. Instead of pointing to accounts table, I'm going to point it to accounts. There we go. And now if I click into, for example, here, I can see all of my accounts here. And this is the beauty about a relational database like Coda, is once I pointed at a specific account, um, I can actually see all the information that belongs to that account. So this is really powerful stuff. So to do your update and delete, if I actually go back to these examples up here, what I've actually done is the it doesn't require anything else uh, except for an account ID in this case. That's the mandatory field. And to create that information there, what you want to do is you want to point to your accounts table. So in this case here, I'm just going to put accounts. And when we see this little symbol, it's telling me that this is specifically pointing at your row here. And actually, if I click on it, it actually creates kind of like a dashed box around it, showing the field that I'm working with. And in the accounts lookup, I actually want to put dot, and I want to grab the account ID. So I'm going to start typing in account ID, and the moment I do that, I actually see the account IDs right here. And when I click off it, so what it's doing is it's going into your accounts column and is looking up the account ID. And because again, this is a relational database, what it's going to do is when I select a specific account, it's actually going to grab the account ID. So if I go back to, let's say, my sales account, so if I go account table and I just search for sales, this is my sales account and all the associated information. Specifically, the account ID is this one right here. It's this kind of like long string of text and numbers. So this is what it actually grabs. So this is what you can do to set up your update accounts and delete accounts buttons. Now, the other one that we're going to focus on is manual journal entries. So this one is probably the most complicated to initially set up. But once you set this up a few times, you'll understand how these journal entries, and this is also very similar for invoices and quotes, how these work. So what I've done here is I have my manual journal button up here. And when you add a new journal entry, in this case, I'm creating a new journal entry, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to point it at some journal lines. And that's what this table below is your journal lines. So in this case here, what I've done is I have my button here, and if I actually look at the button itself, I need to have a description, in this case called a narration. I need to point at my journal lines, and that's it. So once I have those two pieces of information, I don't really need to do anything else. I could add some more stuff here, you can see, but I've ignored those columns. Now, the journal lines is probably the trickier part. So if I look at the journal lines formula, and what I've done, by the way, to create that is I've actually added a new column, and the column type is formulas right here. And in this case, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to add a new journal. So if I scroll down to my formulas, I can see here, new journal line is the formula that I want to work with. So if I just search that here, there it is, new journal line. That's the formula that I'm working with. So when I select that formula, it actually pre-populates this portion for me. So it's saying new formula line, and then below here, I can see the details that I actually need. So in this case, account. It's already selected the account since I'm connected to that account. Then I need to have line amount, account code, description, and so on. So what I need to do is and if I want to understand more about those inputs, I can actually hit this detail button, and it will give me some more information about those optional accounts and then what is required. So in this case, although I'm able to put in um, all these variables, what I can actually do is click this details, and I notice only the account, line amount, and account code are the required inputs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete this one since I've already created one here, and we'll open that one, use that one as a guide. So what I've done here is I have my new journal formula here. I have the account, which is pre-populated. Then line amount is this one right here, this column. So I've created a column called line amount, and that's just basically the, um, the debit or the credit that's going to be going into Xero. Um, in this case here, I've just pointed again at the line amount. Now the account is going to come from your chart of accounts. So again, same thing we did for adding a new account in our chart of account table. We have a lookup table, lookup column, sorry, and then we have it pointing at the account code, and that's it. So the moment I select a specific account, so this transaction here, I'm made a debit to the subscription expense account, and I've credited my bank account $100. So I've created so basically the net of this these two journal lines is Xero, which is what we want. And once we do that, now up here in our journal lines, what I'm doing is I've created another lookup, and it's looking up information from this table right here. And if I go to options, the important thing here is to allow multiple selections, because your journal lines will always be two or more um, journal entries so that they balance out. And in this case here, I simply select the journal entries I want. And I've given them numbers here so I know that the two journal entries, one belong to a single manual journal. And the next time I create journal entries, maybe I'll call it two. And that way, when I then go down here, I select twos, I can then upload those as new manual journals. So this was probably one of the more complicated formulas and buttons to work with. But again, once you go through this exercise a few times, this will be very easy for you. And again, it's a similar process for invoices and quotes as well.